like I think you all started with Békhudi back in 2020, January 2020.
Yes, that's when
right?
it officially started.
Officially launched.
I had been thinking about it for past 6-7 months, but 2020 was when it was launched officially.
And then you started Békhudi, and then Békhudi, I think, was almost like a was something जो कि almost एक blank canvas के ऊपर किसी ने एक dot लगा दिया हो, and you feel like oh मतलब this is something completely new and nobody else is doing it. And then उसके बाद जब जो है I would reach out or like look you guys up on the internet, तो कभी जो है आप कोई conversations कर रहे हैं Zoom पे लोगों के साथ, तो उसके बाद जो है you launched another program, फिर you are speaking to some children in some school setting, and then you started Dare Bekhudi, which is like a physical space, and now you are talking about these podcasts and all of these series. So I think it's been quite a journey. So would you like to talk about how all of this has started for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that after being in depression for about 5 years, mindfulness and meditation is something that helped me come out of it. And those 5 years or however many, I can't exactly remember, but to me it seems like it was a very long time. And I've spoken a lot about having this back pain also, which was a disc bulge, which I had for 10 years for sure. Before I even got married, I had it. And I remember going to multiple doctors. एक होता ना कि you go to everyone to fix yourself. In the process, I got married, had kids, then we even went to the UK to study abroad. वहाँ पे भी गई थी 1-2 दफा checkups कराने. Anyway, came back and then it started getting really worse because इतना दर्द के I had my younger one Zoran, and I felt like I couldn't do anything with him. बच्चे को उठाना है, उसको संभालना है, उसको ख्याल करना है. And so then I ended up going to another doctor, one of the biggest doctors, one would say, in Karachi. And the doctor said, I think you must have had an accident. So I said, no, I have never had an accident. So he said कि आपको तो डिस्क बल्ज है और ये तो सर्जरी से ठीक होगा. मैंने कहा अच्छा, मतलब इतना सीरियस है ये तो मामला. वन थिंग्स के कुछ छोटी मोटी चीज होगी. यस, दर्द तो था ही. So anyway, that day I was really upset and I said, I'm so young, I'm in my 30s. So मैं अपना बैक की सर्जरी करा लूँ इतनी young age में. So anyway, I knew that no, I'm definitely not going for this, and I have to fix myself. I have to find some healing, some cure. Then, interestingly, uske I think about 2-3 weeks mein, I stumbled upon this mindfulness course online, and I just took it. I said, I've tried everything. I'll just do this. So I started doing it, and obviously I was also struggling with depression, anxiety बहुत होती थी. I used to have panic attacks, and having to take care of your kids in a house, and it was a very frightening space to be in. So anyway, I started the course, and I remember it was for 2 months. And जब third month शुरू हुआ तो मुझे याद है कि one day I was sitting and I noticed कि मुझे आज दर्द नहीं हो रहा. तो एक होता है ना, you think कि नहीं, maybe it's just one of those good days, फिर से ना शुरू हो जाए. So खैर, I kept quiet, I kept noticing, but the truth is that it never came back. 1 महीना गुजरा, 2 महीने गुजरे, and I was like, no, this is something else. And I knew that it is this new thing that I did, which had, I don't know how, some miraculously healed me.
Right, and you had no medical procedure.
I had nothing, no medical procedure. I was on my own, meditating every night, every morning. And for me, that realization was unbelievable. And I was like, ये हुआ क्या, कैसे हुआ? And I think that was the beginning of, and obviously the Bekhudi did not come into existence right away, but after that, something in me also shifted. And I just started thinking, I know so many friends, so many people they've been going for therapy. They've been, and not to say that therapy is not the right way, but I just felt like I had found um, something which so many people could benefit from. And that's when we started having talks about making meditations in Urdu. And Suhaib was one of the person who said, why don't we make it in Urdu? Urdu में तो है ही नहीं. English में तो बहुत content available है. And so initially I remember I was like, नहीं ये तो बहुत मुश्किल होगा, कैसे करेंगे? Anything new, you're like, कैसे होगा? But then we started having all these discussions, and then the first thing that we did was we came up with an album which was entirely in Urdu but also in English. And yeah, that's how the journey began. And I think the real purpose was to share this knowledge and this wisdom with as many people as possible, to reach as much as possible, and just to be of some kind of help. Because I know the power.
Tehmina, you spoke about your depression and how it was something which was almost painful for you, and which led to something very grave where you had almost had to do a medical procedure. Can you backtrack a bit and talk about your upbringing with respect to faith, religion? Do you think were these things always there from your childhood, and perhaps they helped you throughout, or how was your upbringing like?
No, so my upbringing was, obviously, I grew up in a religious household, I would say, in the sense that, I always saw my parents praying a lot. Ammi would read the Quran, Roza, Namaz, a highly religious um, I'm just going back to my old house and the space where I remember that वो होता था ना ईद मिलाद उन नबी या कुछ, तो my mom would put diyas in the house and outside. And so we grew up in a setting in which all of these things were very important. And it's not to say that while you're growing up you kind of move away from them, but I feel that as I grew up, obviously everyone has their own challenges. I also had a very difficult teenage years. I was really, really sick even at that time. So I've had that struggle since a very long time. I had this eye problem, which was called keratoconus, and it's supposed to be very rare, but I developed it when I was in grade 7. And even at that time, I had to come and live here with my Taya for months and months, and it got treated. But that is to say that my health was always an issue. But yes, the religious element helped me a lot. But I did feel that as I was growing up, I kind of felt a disconnect with God. And I think when I got over the anxiety bit.
And in this growing up that you're talking about like your university phase?
So this was way before university. This was when I was only in grade 7, and we used to live in Tehri. So I would come here to get myself treated, and I would have to live here for months and months because, and this was something new at that time. I think even the doctors were still trying to figure out, even though my Taya is a doctor and he helped out a lot, but I think it took us very long to understand how to, fix this. And in my university, I went and finally got this fixed. I had a big surgery. But yeah, I think my health condition was, now when I look back, I think it was there for a reason, because I've had this thing to, help people, just, to be there for them. And I feel that a lot of the work at Békhudi that we do has mostly from the very beginning, it's just been of service. We just want to do as much free work as we can and just share it with people. There was never this, it never started with the idea that this is a business, oh my God, it was just to help out in whatever capacity we could.
You were speaking about a certain kind of disconnect
Yeah.
from God. Would you like to explain that?
Hmm. I I felt that when we were in the UK and we did our masters, obviously there were certain things that we had read, um, which were knowledgeable, but a lot of things that I personally felt I wasn't told here while growing up kind of created a disillusionment, because we know the picture perfect kind of religion. There are no flaws, there are no faults. So I think when we went there and we studied, even though it was one of, the two best years of my life, I learned so much, I grew so much. And, but I think in the process, while being there and then coming back, I began to notice that there is some disconnect, um, which I felt was also linked to my depression. Because I remember, now this is a very personal thing, but I remember very clearly that one night when I was I think I was probably having a panic attack, and I prayed and prayed. When you have that moment in which you're like, God, I just can't take this anymore. There was एक होता है कि people say I have anxiety and I have a panic attack, but I literally used to feel like a deep pain in my heart, like a deep, it's so deep as though someone is putting a dagger inside and is twisting and turning, so it's a lot of pain. So it was that kind of pain, and I remember that night I cried a lot and I said, God, please just help me, get me out of this. And then something happened that night. I had a dream, and everything changed after that. Which is why when we talk so much about mindfulness or mind training, I feel like, especially being a Muslim and growing up in this context, a lot of people I feel who also come to me, the main reason, the underlying cause of depression and anxiety is also a disconnect from God. And I've seen people say that uh, I wish I could feel connected, I feel so distant. These are the words that people say, and I can completely understand because I was in the same state, and it's a very painful place to be in.
I think this feeling of disconnect, this feeling of void, this feeling of not sure about what you're doing. I think it's definitely a feeling felt by many people in today's day and age. You're right, perhaps the way we have been brought up in our context and our culture as well about religion. Um, Perhaps in some cases it might be the disillusion. In some cases it might be a very narrow-minded perspective of religion. And I think it's important that we go and then take our journeys and go deep into it to really understand what this is all about, because often we find that what's being taught to us or how we were told, I think somehow along the way the meaning got extracted out from it, and what was left was just a very surface level treatment that you cannot really fill your void with.
Yeah, I completely agree. That you're doing everything that you have been taught, but that deeper, that feeling and that connection is just not there. You're just doing things for the sake of doing because वो culturally हो रहा है या हर कोई कर रहा है. But how present are you with those actions that you're doing? I think that's where all the magic is.
And when you say this idea of conscious living, like how conscious are you? How aware are you? Do you think these are the notions that are predominantly linked with this power of meditation or with the word meditation? And or how would you describe meditation as a practice, as a way of living, as something that perhaps is meant to center you? in the world?
So I feel meditation for me is actually so many things, but one thing that I, in my journey, discovered was that when I started meditating, I began to feel a different presence while praying namaz. And this is just one example that I'm sharing right now. And I think it's because in meditation, when you're sitting with your eyes shut, even though there are many ways of practicing, but essentially hota kya hai ki you begin to train your mind, right? The mind is because mostly it's so filled up with thoughts or worries or problems, आज ये हो गया, आज वो हो गया, कल ये करना है, परसों वो, फिर कोई पास्ट में किसी ने आपको कुछ बोल दिया, it's always there. We are carrying this burden with us within our minds and in our hearts. तो उससे क्या होता है कि जो भी एक प्रेजेंट मोमेंट है, जैसे अभी हम बैठे हुए हैं, उसमें मैं कितनी अपनी प्रेजेंस ला रही हूँ. So for me, the practice of meditating, sitting down, and focusing on my inner world, it is something that brings presence and consciousness into my life. Now, consciousness we all have, but how aware am I? और इसमें काफी सारी चीजें भी आ जाती, like your senses begin to become more sharpened. Sound आपको दूर से ज्यादा आएगी, smell ज़्यादा आने लग जाएगी, different things. But I think the presence, and it's so hard to describe it in words, but when you start reflecting and you're shutting your eyes and you're going inwards, you realize that there is a deep stillness within you. इतना ठहराव है उस चीज में कि वो आपको फिर एंकर करता है. आप सुबह करें, आप रात करें, it is something that anchors you. And I would really like to say one thing that, over the years, I feel like, how we wake up in the morning and brush our teeth, or a lot of us even before going to bed. So it's you're taking care of your oral hygiene. And it's so important to us because almost one would not go without it, right? You will not go to your office or to school without brushing your teeth. So for me, meditating is my soul hygiene. I have to clean my soul before I go to bed. And why do I have to do that? Because we all have our own issues in life. ऐसा हो नहीं सकता कि किसी एक दिन आपको कोई इश्यू ना हुआ हो या कोई प्रॉब्लम, some difficulty that you dealt with. So you want to cleanse yourself. You want to clean yourself. एक होता है ना clean slate. Clean your soul. Every night you're cleaning yourself. And then the next morning you wake up, it's a new day. It's a new life. So I feel that cleansing, taking care of your soul in that way is very, very important. You let go of your emotions, any burden that is weighing you down. You clear your mind and you start afresh every day.
That does make sense. The idea of cleansing, the idea of the example of brushing teeth, and all it becomes like a ritual. Then it almost becomes like something that you have to do, something that you have to keep doing in order to keep functioning and functioning well in society. So, on a personal, as a personal anecdote, um, I think this is around the time of COVID. A lot changed for people as well. Suddenly, people found themselves living in their houses, and almost to a point where they felt like they don't really have those distractions. So those eight distractions that they usually would have, जिसके थ्रू वो अपनी जिंदगी गुजार रहे हैं. And now they have to confront themselves. Now they have to talk to people. Now they have to understand कि उनका कमरा मतलब why isn't it sorted. So there's a lot of like anxiety, a lot of confusion started to emerge. From a personal example, what my response to that particular thing was is to get fit physically, and then naturally started one thing led to the other, and then I found myself cycling and running a lot during that time. And then even after COVID, the routine or that almost that ritual stayed there to a point where there would be days where while I'm running and I feel so connected with myself, and I would be like, this is almost like meditation. This is almost like a way for me to understand or clear out my thoughts, and to just be present, because I always had a problem with being present. My friend would say, Ahmad, you zone out, Ahmad. But it almost feels like you're not here. And it almost made me realize that just the idea of me running and be connected to myself, then I found myself, and I became a better driver. I became better at work. I was more attentive to certain details. My work miraculously started to bloom. And suddenly I was able to handle many things, but was still able to perform them well without being burnt out. And I felt like perhaps this was only possible because I'm giving that nourishment to my body and my mind that it really requires on a day-to-day basis, and I'm almost not letting it clog. So do you think that perhaps even our understanding of meditation, or how meditation is usually performed, do you think that there are many different ways through which we can approach meditation?
Like I was saying initially, that there can be many ways of meditating. For example, when I also teach, so एक तो होता है कि आप still होके आंखें बंद करके बैठे हुए हैं. Then we also recommend eating meditation. Then there's walking meditation. तो इन सब में अंडरलाइंग एक चीज सिमिलर है, और वो ये है कि आपकी अटेंशन कितनी प्रेजेंट है इन वट एवर एक्टिविटी यू आर डूइंग. ओके, विच इज वाई व्हेन सम पीपल इवन कम टू मी, आई से व्हाट डू यू लव टू डू. सो सम पीपल लव पेंटिंग, सम विल से आई लव गोइंग फॉर अ जॉग. अब आप जब चले गए हैं और आप जब कर रहे हैं, तो how we train people is that, what are you seeing, what are you smelling, if there is anything can you taste. तो essentially आइडिया क्या है कि आप उस वक्त उस मोमेंट में उस एक्टिविटी में प्रेजेंट कितने हैं, आप माइंडफुली कितना अवेयर हैं, and how much are you, um, how they say you're in the flow of the moment. So when some people love painting, they're so involved, उनको पता ही नहीं चलता 1 घंटा हो गया 2 घंटे हो गए. They have no idea. So anything that you can bring that kind of presence to in your life through whatever activity, I feel it's your meditating. Essentially, that is also meditation. Because at the end of the day, it is all about this presence that you can tap into. And like you're saying, I used to go for a jog and you would feel so alive, and आपको लगता है alive, and so there's this energy, right? There's this burst of energy, which is, where is it coming from?
Alive is the word.
You're alive, and that aliveness is that presence. Because वो जो अंदर एक presence है, वो हम tap in कर रहे होते हैं. And we could be connected with that aliveness and energy at all times also. It's about आप कितना उस time में, आप कितना उस feeling में rest करते हैं. The more you rest in it, the more you have access to it, right? So initially when I would meditate, it would take me very long. Thoughts लगता था, haywire. Now when I sit, I'm right into that stillness. And obviously it's happened over a period of time, but then you're just connected with that stillness, that presence.
And you personally have a specific way of creating an atmosphere for meditation, where you work with imageries, you work with, for example, your meditations that I think you first uploaded on YouTube back in 2020 were all about taking the person to a particular moment, or to a particular scenery, and making them imagine things, being making them become aware of their surrounding, of themselves, of their bodies, of their touch, of like you said, what you're feeling, what you're sensing. Have you been trained in that specific way? And and what was your training like?
So, so when I started meditating, obviously I used a lot of different apps and a lot of online stuff. But the meditations that we started to make mostly came, a lot of them, from my own experience of meditation. And what I mean by that is that a lot of imagery or the spaces or the places, even though, obviously we've been inspired, we traveled up north and XYZ. But when I have been in my own meditative states and I felt like, I'm in some place, and all of those things happen naturally when you're meditating. So during the process of writing the meditations, a lot of it was inspired through my own journey of the meditations that I had been doing. But this kind of meditation also has a name. You call it guided imagery, or which has to do with imaginative brain faculties. And obviously the more you do it, then you're training that component of your mind, which can be highly imaginative, and at times so imaginative that you might even see things that you have not seen in this world. And it's because there is something inside which knows more than what we know rationally. The rational mind knows what it knows here, right? जो हम देखते हैं, चीजें देखते हैं, पहाड़ देखते हैं, जो भी देखते हैं. But the deeper you go, there is something in the imagination which knows more than what you know. I don't know if I'm explaining it, but
नहीं, बिल्कुल आई थिंक मेडिटेशन के साथ एक और वर्ड भी बहुत एक वर्ड बहुत जुड़ा हुआ है, रियाजत का. And it almost feels like I think the world or your inner world gets revealed to you bit by bit. It doesn't happen on the first day, it doesn't happen in the first week, it doesn't happen in the first month. Yes, you may start to feel differently, but whereas I think what you're talking about is almost like a journey. It's almost like something that you also have to be patient with. You cannot, and perhaps in some way it would also not be fair to you if that's your first goal or your first or foremost goal, that I want to attain that level of transcendence, और उसके थ्रू मैं कुछ जानना चाहूँगा अपने आप को. So I think, and I think it's very important for us, especially in today's day and age where there's so much chaos, and like we were talking about, there's such a void, internal void that we're dealing with. There's a lot of externalization in today's world, and not a lot of self-reflection. And I think meditation does give you that approach, or does offer an approach to change that narrative for good. So Tehmina, are there any actionable tips for younger generation, or for example for people that might be struggling with finding what they really need to do in the world? Um, Maybe from your own personal anecdote as well, how you felt like you're not sure what you want to do or where you are. So, are there any actionable tips that you would like to share?
so this is reminding me of something I read online, which said that, in an age of constant movement, nothing is more urgent than sitting still. And when I first read it, I thought it was so profound. Also, obviously, it connected with, the meditation bit and everything. But I think आजकल जो हमारी lives है ना, वो इतनी ज़्यादा busy हैं. And they're not just busy like busy how our parents had busy lives. We are drawn towards so many different things, especially with social media. And even when you're free, people are just scrolling. You're on Insta, you're scrolling, you're talking, and you'll start scrolling. So एक mind जो है ना, it's constantly so absorbed into multiple things. So a young person would be thinking of family, friends, work. Then there's a lot of work stress, and then work never ends because now we have mobiles, which will keep on ringing, email ID, and then we're also constantly looking. And I have seen that, while working with some people, um, the main thing that we give for first few weeks is managing your consumption of social media. It's literally as basic as that, but people struggle because itni zyada unknowingly or knowingly there's so much addiction that when does the mind or you yourself, when do you get that break? So I feel that, finding anything, it doesn't have to be meditation, but anything that can help you pause and find that stillness within, finding that presence within, any activity one has to find for themselves. और ये वही वाली बात है कि when you connect within, you know what is your passion or what you love to do. Some people love doing yoga, some people want physical exercise. For some people, they'll go and do photography. Anything, once again, coming back to the same thing, anything that makes you feel alive is what one has to keep on connecting with again and again and again. मैं तो कहती हूँ हर दिन, at least twice a day. You begin your day, and I know painting and all of that is hard, which is why we really say just meditate for 5 minutes. You've decluttered, you've set a perfect tone for the day, and and I've seen that when I start that way, my days are good. They're sorted. I'm not frazzled. I'm not running around. I feel like something has anchored me, and now everything has fallen into place. और रात में भी वही वाली बात है कि um, you let go of any negativity, anything that's weighing you down, and then you begin with a fresh day, a fresh start.
When you're talking about perhaps whatever inspires you or whatever you feel interested in. In your own personal journey, what are the sources or what are the inspirations that you have come across and that have helped you shape as a healer or as a practitioner right now?
So I think that I had always been very interested in art, in sketching. Somehow I never took it up. I didn't do it that much. But I remember that during COVID, I reconnected with that and I started doing a lot of water painting. And I felt like I it was just something I would immerse myself into because वही वाली बात है ना कि इतना free time होता था कि what do you do? And so yes, I think a lot of colors, a lot of imagery, um, painting was one thing that really helped me. And I'm not a regular painter, but I feel that I did it for a while at a very at a time which it helped me a lot. It really supported me. Other than that, I can't think of anything. I used to love baking, but then I stopped. And then, physical exercise is something I do not leave. It is just something I must do. So that is something that I do on a regular basis. And then music is something I have always loved. I feel that music touches your soul in a way that many other things can't. And which is why even in our meditations we pay very careful attention to what kind of music is there. Not very overpowering, but it has to set a tone, because whatever we also use, then I'm very careful in the sense that it also has a relation with our energy centers. And now we're going into another discussion, but yeah, I mean, these are some things that I feel have really helped me along the way.
It feels like at the core denominator of all of these anecdotes or all of these advices or all of these practices is the idea of immersing oneself or yourself into something
That you love.
that you love. I think मुझे ये दिमाग में ये भी आ रहा है कि the name that you have chosen for your practice is बेखुदी. वो भी एक बहुत ही खूबसूरत तरीके से I think you have been able to explain what meditation and what this is all about. Would you like to talk about कि किस तरीके से इस नाम के बारे में सोचा और and how you got to it?
Yeah. So finding the name was one of the hardest things to do because there was just so much to think of. And अभी मुझे याद आ रहा है कि the first name I came up with was called Healing Wings. And then then we thought कि नहीं, because Urdu पे इतना emphasis, it has to be something that has to do with Urdu. English में तो हमने नाम नहीं रखना था. But I remember one day I was trying to find a name, and I came across this whirling dervish online, और उसके नीचे लिखा हुआ था बेखुदी. And I had been trying to, collectively with Zoe, we had been trying to come up with a name, but वो होता ना कि it was just not coming. बहुत सारे सोचे ये रख लें वो रख लें, but nothing was clicking. And I had been thinking कि कोई sign मिल जाए, कोई universe, कोई God give me a sign, what should be the name. And I was just going over some pictures and I saw this whirling dervish और उसके नीचे लिखा हुआ था बेखुदी. And when I saw it, I was like, this is it. It has to be this name. But apart from that, two reasons which were very important to me were अलामा इकबाल ने किताब लिखी है रमूज़े बेखुदी, Secrets of Selflessness. And even though I have not read it, but I have always dreamt of reading it. But मुझे उस पूरे ये जो पूरा concept है ना of losing yourself, and also because it's so connected with Sufism, and Sufism has always been something very close to my heart. Even though बचपन में हमारा इतना हम इसको discuss नहीं करते थे, even though you said I come from this background, but एक होता ना कि अंदर एक कुछ love for it has just always been there. तो एक तो वो अलामा इकबाल की किताब का नाम मेरे दिमाग में बहुत था, और दूसरा आबदा परवीन के 2-3 कलाम हैं जिसमें वो बेखुदी उसको पढ़ती हैं. अभी लाइंस तो आई वुड नॉट लाइक टू से, but I've been very very inspired, and I think that बेखुदी is such a loaded, such a beautiful deep concept कि आई थिंक उसको एक्सप्लेन करना तो मुश्किल है. बट ये वही वाली बात है कि व्हेन यू इमर्स योरसेल्फ, व्हेन यू लूज योरसेल्फ, you only find one thing, and it connects you to God, connects you to Allah Mian, nothing else. Which is why the idea of losing yourself or immersing is so important. I feel that is the one thing we've come here to do, and that is the one thing we forget to do.
Yeah. कहते हैं ना कि समंदर को ऐसे एक प्याले में जमा करने में जो बात होती है, I think the word or the name बेखुदी really captures the entire essence of what you're talking about, or what we have been talking about, is losing oneself in the search of or in a self journey. I think कि आप लोगों का जो ये decision था of creating a space for content which is predominantly Urdu, or has or caters to that kind of audience as well, I think was perhaps definitely something that was completely fresh, as someone who was just who would just go on YouTube and try to look for meditation. Because for me, I could never relate. I could never, for example, मतलब वो चीज़ें होकर, मतलब I would play those things, I would play those guided meditations like you said, मगर उससे जो एक personal connection जो बनता है, for some reason I was not able to find that. And when I came across your content, when I came across your guided meditations, just from the idea कि आप इस मश्क को करने से पहले जो है आँख बंद करके बैठ जाएं और जो है एक आरामदेह जगह का इंतखाब करें, just those ideas and just that kind of phrasing of sentences just did something to me, and it felt to me like this is so needed, and this is so, and it felt so right on so many different levels. not just on the level of a spirituality, or for example, or meditation or whatever, but it also felt real or felt connected on the level of identity, on the level of the culture that we are a part of, the region that we live in, the language that we speak, और उसके थ्रू हम जिस तरीके से उस इमेजरी को सोच सकते हैं, उसको छू सकते हैं, उसको महसूस कर सकते हैं. So I really think that having such content in Urdu form or in Urdu format is definitely something which is amazing, and it's something जो कि मौजूद ही नहीं है, and जिसमें हमें मेरे ख्याल से और काम करने की भी ज़रूरत है.
बिल्कुल. अभी तो I also feel that we've just started, even though अब हमें 3 साल तो हो ही गए हैं काम करते हुए, but there's still so much that needs to be done. एंड अब आपने अभी जो ये बात की, इट्स वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग बिकॉज हमें ये बहुत ज़्यादा फीडबैक, अब जैसे हमें यूट्यूब पे लोग कमेंट्स कर रहे होते हैं कि दिस इज समथिंग हम पता नहीं कितने सालों से ढूंढ रहे हैं और अब हमें मिल गया है, एंड डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ थिंग्स, एंड वाइल sharing these meditations, English में भी लोग करते हैं, some people who come to me, but उर्दू में बहुत लोगों ने बोला है कि हमें एक ऐसा उससे एक कनेक्शन फील होता है, which I think is that identity, because at the end of the day हम जितनी भी इंग्लिश बोल रहे हैं, हमारा हमारा जो डीएनए है उसमें तो उर्दू है ना, because that's where our grandparents or everyone has is coming from. So somehow it speaks in a deeper way. Just like when you listen to Coke Studio music, उसका feel ही अलग है compared to listening to any English music. That's my personal feeling, because it moves a lot more within you than just listening to a piece of you know
और उसके अंदर the idea of reconnecting then becomes so much louder, that you're reconnecting to your language, you're reconnecting to your faith, you're reconnecting to yourself. And I think that's something which is again so inspiring and so motivating, कि लगता है कि perhaps जो हमारे इर्द गिर्द चीज़ें हैं, यूजुअली जब हम लोग सेल्फ डेवलपमेंट और स्पिरिचुअलिटी की बात कर रहे होते हैं, तो उसमें अमूमन लोग कहते हैं कि आप जो है लोकली स्टार्ट करें, मतलब स्टार्ट लोकली, अपने इर्द गिर्द से स्टार्ट करें. एंड बाय लोकली दे मीन योर बॉडी, योर फिजिकल बीइंग. लाइक स्टार्ट लोकली, अपने कमरे से स्टार्ट करें, अपने अपने कमरे को सॉर्ट करें, मेक श्योर दैट यू लिव एंड ब्रीथ इन अ क्लीन स्पेस. सो आई फील है कि बहुत सारी वैल्यूज़ हैं जिनके साथ जिनको बहुत अहमियत देने की ज़रूरत है, लेकिन जिस तरीके से हमारी अपब्रिंगिंग हुई है, जिस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में हम लोग पैदा हुए हैं, इवन कॉलोनियलिज्म की वजह से भी, और बेतहाशा फैक्टर्स की, मीडिया की मीडियम, डिफरेंट टेलीविज़न या सोशल मीडिया की प्रेजेंस की वजह से भी, हम लोग किसी न किसी वजह से have been detached from these core values that always have been there in a way as well, or just putting the content out there. Now this is something very personal, but just putting the content out there in a specific language, I think just does wonders for you and immediately makes you feel like, yes, this is what I was waiting for. क्योंकि उस प्लेलिस्ट के अंदर जब आपने वो यूट्यूब पे करी थी, आई थिंक उसके अंदर 9 वीडियोस थी, जिसके अंदर आई थिंक 5 इंग्लिश में थी और 4 उर्दू में थी, और एक कोई मेडिटेशन थी जो आई थिंक आई कुड नॉट फाइंड इन उर्दू. तो मैंने वो मेडिटेशन ही नहीं सुनी. अब वो क्या कोई ग्लिच था, क्या था, बट आई कुड नॉट फाइंड इट इन उर्दू. तो मैंने बोला यार मुझे ये सुननी नहीं है, बिकॉज वो इतना एक एपेटाइट डेवलप हो चुका था कि यार आई वांट टू कंज्यूम मोर ऑफ दिस काइंड ऑफ फॉर्मेट. मुझे याद है एक एक स्पेसिफिक उसके अंदर एक मेडिटेशन है, गाइड मेडिटेशन है, जिसके अंदर टॉकिंग अबाउट अ स्पेसिफिक सीनरी, एंड यू आर स्पीकिंग अबाउट कि किस तरीके से आप एक दरख्त के नीचे आप दावत दे रही हैं लोगों को एक दरख्त के नीचे बैठने की, जिसके अंदर और उस दरख्त में पत्ते गिरे हुए हैं और सामने एक नहर है और एक रिवर है, और आप ये दरख्वास्त करेंगे कि जितने भी आपकी नेगेटिव थॉट्स हैं, मनफी सोचें हैं, आप इनको जो है ऑलमोस्ट बुलबुले की सूरत में इन पत्तों के ऊपर बिठा के पानी में बहा दें. Just that thought, just that imagery, it almost felt poetry to me. And I think उससे मुझे एहसास हुआ कि जो ज़बान है और जो ये एहसास की जो डिलीवरी है, ये भी बहुत मायने रखती है किसी को एक सर्टेन तरीके से फील कराने में. So this is just something which is very personal.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this in so much detail, because I am ऑनेस्टली इतने खूबसूरती से किसी ने मुझे पहले बताया भी नहीं है कि आई फील सो हैप्पी टू हियर दिस कि आपको उससे एक इतना ऐसा एक कनेक्शन फील हुआ, इवन दो यू नो इंग्लिश में आप अगर इसकी बात करें तो वो हम इतना करते हैं कि वो उस तरह फील नहीं होते, राइट? बट जब हम भी उर्दू में इसको लिखते थे, हम कहते थे कि इट्स, इवन दो आई हैड बीन डूइंग इट इन इंग्लिश, बट इट इतना नया फील होता था उर्दू में, यू नो. और वही वाली बात है जो आप कह रहे हो कि द लैंग्वेज, हमने इतना वक्त लगाया है लैंग्वेज को रिजॉल्व करने में कि यू कांट इवन इमेजिन कि हम शुरू में कितनी रातों सिर्फ लैंग्वेज रिजॉल्व करने में बैठते थे कि इस मश्क को कहें या कुछ और कहें, दावत देती हूँ कहें या नहीं कहें, मतलब बहुत कुछ सोच के इतना हमारी फिर एक लैंग्वेज रिजॉल्व हुई थी उसकी. बट मुझे बहुत खुशी हो रही है ये सुन के कि इट हैज वर्कड ऑन अ डीप लेवल, एंड दैट वाज आवर गोल. थैंक यू फॉर शेयरिंग.
इससे ज़्यादा खुशी हुई थी जब मैंने उसको कंज्यूम किया था. Tehmina, you were talking about कि आप एक सूफी सिलसिले से भी ताल्लुक़ रखती हैं या उससे जुड़ी भी हैं, and then I also learned about you that you also have some proficiency in Reiki healing as well. I've also attended your sessions in which you talk about energies a lot, chakras a lot, which is a concept rooted in Hinduism. You also speak or you quote people who belong to Christian faith predominantly. So there's this diversity in your speech. There is a diversity in these ideas. How do you make sense of it? And do you think कि perhaps हमारी जो understanding है spirituality की और religion की और faith की, do you think कि perhaps there's a another way of perceiving it or looking at it?
Basically, I would like to say that, you know, ever since I've been on this journey, I've had such a thirst, I would say, for just getting to know spirituality in a better way. And right now, for now, I would like to separate religion and spirituality. बिकॉज आई फील कि रिलीजन में तो बचपन से हम सबकी एक ग्राउंडिंग होती है, बिकॉज हम जिस तरह से बड़े होते हैं और जो जो चीज़ें सीखते हैं. बट इवन देन आई फेल्ट लाइक वी स्पोकन बिफोर कि एक अंदर से एक स्पिरिचुअल डिस्कनेक्शन फील होता था. एंड आई रिमेंबर दैट व्हेन आई स्टार्टेड टू लर्न माइंडफुलनेस एंड मेडिटेशन, उससे एक तो मेरा कनेक्शन विद गॉड स्ट्रांग हुआ, बट उस वक्त भी मुझे लगता था कि आई स्टिल हैव सो मच टू लर्न. And after doing that, I went on to learning Reiki. And when I did Reiki, I felt like it opened so many doors for me spiritually. And I think I will not be able to explain it, but I feel like the places I went to after doing Reiki and getting in touch with that kind of energy was so profound and so powerful कि मैं एक्चुअली उसको इन वर्ड्स एक्सप्लेन नहीं कर सकती. एंड देन व्हेन आई डिड रेकी, आई स्टार्टेड टू यू सेंस दिस एनर्जी, और वो सारी एनर्जी हीलिंग होती है. एंड आई वाज ऑलवेज सो इंस्पायर्ड by anything that has to do with spirituality. अब वो मुझे Reiki से मिले, chakras से मिले, even though when we launched our chakra album, some people told me, they said कि ये तुम क्या कर रही हो? ये तो बहुत Hinduism है. But I said कि ये spiritual है. Anything that has to do with spirituality then connects to one thing, you know, one divinity, and they're all the same for me. I mean, I still don't think I'm done yet, you know. I'm always looking for new things or क्या मैं सीख सकती हूँ, what is still missing. Because at the end of the day, I feel आप जितने भी बड़े हो जाएं, the learning never stops. You know, the thirst is, I feel it so much. I'm always looking for new books, always looking for something new to learn. And I feel this field of spirituality is so vast. It's, you know, like this huge ocean which will not finish.
वो माइकल एंजेलो का एक कोट है कि आई थिंक व्हेन ही वाज almost 88 years old, there's a famous quote where he says that I'm still learning.
Still learning.
So yeah, definitely I think that the learning continues. But Tehmina, for someone who would like to start um, or would like to initiate this journey for themselves, what would be your advice to them? Because somehow in the internet age, जहाँ पे now almost we are entering the AI age by the way, but जिस तरीके से हम लोग बम्बार्डेड हो जाते हैं इंफॉर्मेशन के साथ, कभी कभी समझ में नहीं आता कि शुरू कहाँ से करें, कि ये भी हो सकता है या वो भी हो सकता है या कुछ और भी हो सकता है. So, are there any books to read? Are there anything to follow? Of course, there's your platform as well. But how would you guide such minds or such thirsty people out there? Because there's so much craving for such for such a deep underlying human experience.
So one thing that I, you know, really like to tell everyone, एक तो देखें, there is no set pattern, right? There is everyone, whoever is out there, everyone has their own journey, their own path. हर बंदा अपने different ages में different moments in their lives, एक आप अपनी personal journey पर होते हैं. तो obviously इसका आंसर मैं बहुत अपने ही एंगल से दे पाऊंगी. बट जो मैंने आपसे बात की थी of disconnection in the beginning, one book that had a very profound effect on me was a book by Eckhart Tolle. He's one of the biggest spiritual teachers, I would say. Mostly, I think he lives in Canada. And the book's name was A New Earth. और वो book interesting ये है कि I started reading that book and then शुरू में मुझे इतनी dense लगी थी when I started reading कि मैं उसको बहुत slow पढ़ रही थी, और फिर एक वक्त आया था कि मैंने 6 महीने उसको खोला ही नहीं उसके बाद. But I kept longing कि you know वो book पढ़ी है, ख़त्म करनी है. But I read it at a time when I was still, you know, struggling with depression and anxiety, और वो book पढ़ने के साथ साथ ही I came out of it. तो जब वो book मैंने पढ़ी, उसको मैंने ख़त्म किया, मैंने उसको proper, I would say, study किया. मुझे लगता है मैंने कभी पढ़ाई के बाद किसी book को उस तरह से study नहीं किया था. Then I saw all of his talks. On every single chapter there was a talk, which was, for me, it was amazing. You know, रात को मेरा वो time होता था, I would sit and put that on. But that book, I feel I owe my life to that book because it changed so much for me. It changed my worldview. It made me understand what I was going through. It helped me realize that I'm not alone in this struggle of depression or feeling lonely, because when you are in that state of anxiety and depression, it's a very lonely place. आपको लगता है आपको ही और बाकी दुनिया ठीक है, और आपको वाकई ऐसे ही लगता है. आप कहते हैं पता नहीं मुझे हो क्या गया. अब तो खैर अवेयरनेस बहुत है. आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट like 10 years ago. उस वक्त इतनी अवेयरनेस नहीं थी, so there was this feeling of there's something seriously wrong with me, इसका पता नहीं solution भी है या नहीं, will I be able to come out of this, कोई cure है नहीं है. So that book is something I would tell everyone. I would say to please just go and read that book. उनकी और भी बहुत किताबें, एक और book है Power of Now, but he primarily talks a lot about present moment and presence and all of these concepts that are obviously covered in mindfulness and the discipline of meditation. But these two books can be an excellent starting point. Books तो और बहुत सारी हैं, but I feel that um, they have a very balanced view. They're not very religious in any way, and I think they would speak to today's generation, a larger audience. Anyone can just pick it up and read it.
आज जो है हम दर बेखुदी में बैठे हैं और एंड आई थिंक कि आप लोगों के लिए भी बहुत बड़ा माइलस्टोन रहा है of having a physical space where such conversations can take place, जहाँ पे physical mindfulness sessions conduct हो सकें, जहाँ पे various lectures या different किस्म की practices conduct हो सकें. दरे बेखुदी के बारे में how would you like to explain the concept behind दरे बेखुदी? किस तरीके से किस तरीके से ये ख्याल आया कि एक फिजिकल स्पेस होनी चाहिए?
हो ये रहा था कि obviously I had people coming to me who were doing my course mostly, and some people would come for Reiki healing and chakra healing. But course जो मैं कराती हूँ होता है 8 weeks का, और उसके बाद obviously people leave me, and a lot of people who come to me they say कि अच्छा बस 8 weeks का है, तो हम तो थेरेपी पे 15 साल से जा रहे हैं, एंड so how will it end so quickly? एक तो वो बहुत कंसर्न रहा है लोगों का, and I would say I you will be fine in 8 weeks, and that's kind of like not my promise, but I know that a lot can change in that given time. But over these years, we began to feel that a lot of people who would leave, I felt like उनके लिए भी एक void create हो रहा था, and that would cause me a lot of I would feel disturbed by it in some really strange way कि मैंने उनको एक चीज सिखाई है, and even though there's a lot of stuff out there which one can stay connected to, but मुझे feel होने लग गया था कि we need a space where these people can come back to if they want to. It's like आपने कोई नई चीज शुरू करवाई, and then so what happens next? बिल्कुल ही फिर कोई वो ही नहीं है, फॉलो अप नहीं है, एंड पीपल वुड नॉट कम टू मी फॉर फॉलो अप बिकॉज उसका कोई मॉडल ही नहीं था हमारे पास ऑफ फॉलो अप सेशंस, इवन दो वन कुड हैव डन इट. तो बस जब कुछ लोगों ने मुझे कहा कि एंड देन देयर वर सम हु वर वेरी वेरी they messaged me a lot of times कि okay, when will you keep a meditation class, please just keep one, अच्छा अपने घर में कर लो. So then I felt like people were asking me to come up with something, and maybe I wouldn't have if those people had not approached me. And I think that's when we really started thinking that we need a space. Putting this space together was a very tough journey. Even though when we conceived of the idea, we thought कि हाँ it will be very easy, हो जाएगा, यहाँ कर लेंगे वहाँ कर लेंगे. But I feel like it was even tougher than launching Békhudi. It just took so much from us. हमें 9 महीने लग गए. पहले हम बाहर बना रहे थे, फिर हमें कोई और जगह मिली. Finally घूम फिर के we came back into the house, and I think I realized at that time कि हर चीज का वक्त और जगह मुकर्रर है. But in some way you have to go through the pain and the process of getting to that place, and it takes its time. I think जितनी resilience मुझे चाहिए थी और patience इसके लिए it was unmatched. I feel कि मेरी बहुत ज़्यादा उस process में spiritual training ही हो गई. I had not expected it, but it was just very hard. There were time came when we thought कि what, let's just stop for अभी छोड़ देते हैं और we'll come back to it later. But yeah, I'm actually, you just mentioned कि हम यहीं बैठे कर रहे हैं, and it just brought back all those, the struggle. But yeah, I feel so grateful to be sitting here today. I did not think of this even like a few days ago that we will be having a conversation. But I think I can't be more grateful.
So moving forward, किस तरह से देखती हैं बेखुदी को ग्रो होता हुआ दरे बेखुदी को? Are there any other plans as well? क्योंकि हम लोग जब भी मिल रहे होते हैं कुछ ना कुछ आप अलग ही कर रहे हो तो. So is there anything else lined up as well?
So for now, we're just hoping to take Dare Bekhudi forward. We have planned to have a lot of, more of spiritual talks. We're hoping to invite, some big professors and other people in the same field. And I feel that one of our main reasons for, even having these podcasts has been to collect and hear from like-minded people who have been on this path. I think it's not easy to firstly find such people who are on a particular spiritual journey, and especially I feel in our context they're very hidden. They're not in the forefront. कुछ लोग होते हैं but बहुत सारे नहीं भी होते और वो बात भी नहीं करना चाहते. So we really feel the need. I feel the need for this thing, to have this kind of platform is very ripe. It's very important. And so yeah, that's one part. Second part, I think जो हमने अपना राहे अमन program किया था with children, that is something that has been on our mind. It was also a dream come true when we did it, when we wrapped it up last year. And I really, really hope and dream to take it to more schools, and I hope that more and more children learn this skill from now, and we could really see a huge shift, in how children are growing up, and as they grow older, I think it can be one of the biggest skills that they can have. I wish I could learn all of this when I was younger. सीख लिया शुक्र है बट पहले सीख लेते तो बहुत कुछ आई फील आसान हो जाता just dealing with life challenges and struggles. And so yeah, I think these two things are coming to me right now, two important things.
लेकिन मेरे ख्याल से अब ज़रूर एक सोर्स तो बन रही हैं बहुत सारे लोगों के लिए कि वो एक यंग एज में इन चीज़ों से वाकिफ़ होना शुरू हो जाएं. और इंशाल्लाह मेरी दुआ भी है, उम्मीद भी है कि आप लोग जो है इन सारे इंडेवर्स के अंदर कामयाब रहें. थैंक यू सो मच तहमीना.
Thank you.
इस गुफ्तगू के लिए बहुत अच्छा लगा आपसे बातें करके. बहुत शुक्रिया. थैंक यू.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.